Well, if you're visiting us for the first time, we've started this journey here at Excel. We've been talking about boundaries, and a few weeks before we talked about boundaries and family. Last week, what did we talk about? Boundaries and workplace. Yep. And so today we're looking at boundaries when it comes to the digital age. And when I did that survey, like I have a laptop, I have a tablet, I have a smartphone. I don't have any social media pages, but I'm subscribed to YouTube, so I might as well have a social media page because I'm on it all the time. So when I was doing this, I was like, oh man, I'm in trouble of some sort. So if you read this book, this is the Boundaries book. If you don't have it, feel free to grab it. But I was reading this particular chapter and just came to the realization that I've got absolutely no boundaries when it comes to the digital age. And I don't know if you find yourself in the same place, but hopefully as we go through today's series or today's session, it might open up your eyes a little bit more around some boundaries that you could begin to put in place. So here we go. After our time together, here are a couple of things that will be covered. As you go through the uptime throughout this week that Frank will post up, you'll dive into this chapter, the digital age chapter, a bit deeper. There's only 3 things that I'm going to cover out of this particular chapter. Number 1, we're going to learn and understand the impact that the digital media age has had on us. What impact has it had? As it's developed, how has that impacted us as people? Number 2, when it comes to social media, when it comes to the digital age, what kind of boundaries do we need to put in place for our teens? Even our children in particular, but more so for our teens, what can we do to help put some boundaries in place for them? And number 3, obviously something's been threatened, so how can we protect our most valuable asset, which is our relationships? How do we protect those in a world that is moving pretty fast around technology? Cool? So those are 3 things we hope to cover in today's session. So let's go with number 1, understanding the impact of the digital age on us today. So before we go to that first point, who can tell me, what's this? Now, if you can tell me what this is up on the board here, you're old. No, I'm just kidding. What's this? A pager. All right. So in the history of technology, when they first began to create these communication devices, it started off just by using pagers. So at work, you carry a pager around and people could send you they'll text or call a specific number, and then it'll send you an alert, and then you'd know you'd have to call this number, blah, blah, blah. So you could be anywhere, you could be out golfing, you could be anywhere, then they'll send it out, you'd read it, then you'd try to get to that emergency as quickly as possible. They started with the pager. Then it moved to, can anyone remember what this is? Yeah, a cell phone, all right? And you're walking around trying to go like this. Yeah, and it was about 40 cents a second to pay to try to speak to someone. All right, I remember when my dad got one of these, it was this little brown one, it looked exactly like that. And I remember playing on it, calling different people, and he had no idea because he'd just leave it in the drawer, and he said it was only for emergencies. I was so intrigued by it. I would just call different people, and by the end of the month, he got this massive-ass bill, right? And he was like, who's been touching my cell phone? I didn't know it was called a cell phone at the time. I just thought, this is an interesting gadget, right? So you went from the pager, then you went to the cell phone. Who remembers what this is? Dial-up, yeah? And then you hear that, right? You got to enter in the password, it's dialing, right? And it feels like a lifetime while you're waiting for it to connect, and then it comes up disconnected, hashtag pay your bill, jokes, right? But it would come up and it would take ages while you're waiting for it to dial up, and you have to get the phone cord that's connected to the phone, disconnect it from there, plug it into the back of the computer. Yeah, that was the dial-up, right? And this is the time, around this time, where emails and Yahoo and Hotmail, all of that started coming out around this time. If you can remember this one, you're awesome. Who remembers this one? Yeah, MSN Messenger. Yeah, those chats. Yeah, right. This is the reason that my siblings were not allowed to come into my room and touch the computer. Because I would say to my dad, I'm doing homework, but I was on MSN chatting to my friends that I just saw an hour before, right? So MSN, so you see this progression, and then now you're having these chats online. You don't even have to talk to anyone outside of the room. You just chat to them online, right? And then we advanced even more, and we made our move to here, smartphones, all right? smartphones, which have ultimately made some of us smarter. Smart, yeah. So now you can do pretty much where you had your life sort of in separate parts. Now you've kind of got your life all on this one gadget. Yeah, you can pay bills, you can chat to people here, you can video call people on this. Where you had to physically leave home to be somewhere, now you don't even have to do that. You can just speak to them or put them on loudspeaker if you've got other things to do, and you can walk around the house and you can still be connected to them while not with them. Yeah? Can you see the journey that we've had? Here's the thing. In the book, it talks about before any of this technology came out, it said time and space were the natural boundaries that separated our work life and our home life and our family life and our social life. Time and space naturally separated those areas of our lives, right? But now you can finish from work, walk out the door, get an email or a phone call 2 minutes after you walked out the door, and you're still on the clock, right? So now time and space no longer no longer separates those areas. You can now be at home and still be working. You know what I mean? And so time and space are threatened and are severed, because now you can be doing all of those things, and all of them have just been sort of merged into the one space. There's no distinction between this is my family time, this is my work time, this is my friend's time, this is what, there's no more distinction in those areas. They're all just sort of blurred and merged into the one. You could be at dinner with your family and your girlfriend or one of your guys ring, and you can get up and leave and take the phone call, right? Whereas before, if they needed to contact you, or you wait till I got home and then there was a phone there, you call there. It was physically harder to be in contact with people because time and space separated you from them. Does that make sense? And so our boundaries when it comes to digital media, this stuff has its positives, but at the same time, it's sort of created this blur where we have struggled to separate those things. All right? How has this impacted us? Well, I think Bui hit it on the head when she said, we've now become so engaged in the digital world that it's now had an impact on our non-digital world. Our relationships between us, human to human, has become so threatened because our online and our digital engagement has just been so massive. As these things have advanced, it's sort of become like empowering, but also disempowering at the same time. The thing that was meant to connect us also disconnects us. Our ability to keep these worlds and spaces separate has become really difficult. Our attention span, and you might say to your kids, man, I don't know why you can't just focus. Sometimes even for us as humans, as adults, right, it's hard for us to just focus on the one thing our husband or our spouse is trying to say to us, right? Because, some of this media has taken over a lot of our focus, and we've, paid a lot of attention to that. So our attention span has gotten shorter. Anyone here heard of FOMO? FOMO? Yeah? What's FOMO for those, you know what that is? Yeah, the fear of missing out. Yeah, a lot of us have become infected with that virus of FOMO, but I'm going to come back and touch on that, all right? But FOMO has become a big thing amongst this generation. And then, I remember when this came out, right? And then as society's moved on, things just keep getting better and better. It's almost like keeping up with the Joneses. You get one smartphone, and then the next one comes out. Then you feel tempted, like there might not be anything wrong with this phone, but you just need the next one, right? You just keep wanting to keep up with the latest style. So that becomes a bit difficult as well. So it's impacted us by having an attitude of like it's just never enough. Never enough. All right, cool? All right, download with the person next to you before we go to the next one. And by the way, sorry, there are some pins if you need to take notes. But yeah, download with the person next to you. How has digital media or the digital age impacted us? Go. All right, now if you're a parent, you may want to take some notes in this particular part because your children are either teens or going to become teens very soon. If you are if you don't have children but you have siblings, you may want to take note so that you can keep this in mind, or even when you have your own children. Yeah. All right. So let's go to the next one. We're looking at boundaries for teens. Yeah. So we're just going to roll on. We're going to look at. So we know that time and space doesn't create any more separation for us. It's hard to differentiate between the two workspaces now, right? You got work and home. But that becomes even harder for our teens, all right? When all of this stuff is around them, what can you do as the adult in their lives to help minimize as much of this blur as possible for them? What can you do to help them navigate their way through all the different apps and all the different technology that's coming? What can you do to help them? Because whether you like it or not, technology is around it's going to be around for a very long time. All right. I didn't think that I would see the day that we would be having touch phones. I never thought that. All right. I was still, when phones came out, I was the Nokia 3310 kid. All right. The snake game. Yeah. That was me. All right. So I never thought that I would see the day where you could just take a photo, send it across, and then everyone will know what's going on in your life. Right. But now I'm in that stage. And it's only going to develop even more, right? Even when smartphones came out, now smartphones itself have evolved so much that now you've got facial recognition. I never thought any of that would happen, all right? Your fingerprint, all of that, you know? You no longer have to take your card out and pay pass and tap. Now you can use your phone. You just hold it over, tap, yeah, or your watch now, right? You're talking like this or whatever you're doing, you know? It's evolving. So whether you like it or not, your child will be growing up in these spaces. So you need to know what you're going to do to provide some boundaries so that they know how to handle it with you, so that when they leave your home, you'll nurture them to know how to handle them responsibly. Yeah, because that's important. So here's number one. Oh, I like that last one. Yeah, you guys heard of screen ages? Yeah, I like that one. I think that one's pretty cool. Oh, no, it's not a show. It's just what they call teenagers who are on their screen all the time. Yeah, screen ages? Yeah. All right. All right, the book tells us, Cloud and Townsend tells us, or in their book, they talk about the best thing that you can do for your teen, right? Before you begin to implement any of these, it's really important to know your child, because it's impossible as a parent to go, you're not going to be able to monitor every single thing that they are on, all right? They're going to be on Snapchat, they're going to be on, Pate just told me, he said, he goes to his students, man, how many of you guys have Facebook pages? And the kids go, Facebook? Who's that? I'm on Insta. That's the latest one. And I was like, oh my goodness. I thought Facebook is for the old people. I mean, all right. Right? It's just advancing, right? But it's impossible for you as a parent to be on top of every single thing that they are on. So the best thing that you can do is know your child well enough so that you can get alongside of them. Your relationship with them is going to help them navigate and be able to help them to be honest and open about where they're at, and so that you can actually build this trusting relationship with your child. All right? So you've got to be able to know your child well and help them to be able to be aware so that they can tell you stuff and not be able to go, I'm going to put it all over Facebook and all over Insta before I share with you. You know what I mean? So here's number one. Begin with earning and proving trust. Here's what they say. Trust is the key to everything with teenagers. They respond to it, but they also need, and hear it, they also need to prove they are worthy of it. The best approach towards developing this kind of trust is by exercising the law of sowing and reaping in love. Right? You guys remember when we talked about the 10 laws? Yeah, sowing and reaping. So I'm going to give you trust with this particular gadget. And you will have that trust for as long as you can show me that I can trust you. All right? And you can get more if you keep sowing into this space that I can trust you. But the minute that you prove to me I can't trust you, all right? You've stepped outside of our boundaries and you lose it. You get it? All right, so this is what they say. Begin with earning and proving trust. They give an example. He gives an example of how he says to his girls that he sat them down and he says, look, you're coming into the teenage years and you're going to be surrounded by all of these things. So he says, I'm going to give you a formula, and it's freedom equals responsibility equals love. He says these three things must be equal. When he's talking to his daughters, he says these three things must be equal. And you will get the amount of freedom that you use with responsibility. And responsibility always expresses itself in love. So if you are given freedom in a certain area and you use that freedom responsibly, then you will continue to have that freedom, and you may be even given more, and vice versa. So for your teenager, you may give them a device, whatever it might be, access to a social media page, which I would encourage you to say to the child, I need to be able to have the password so I can still see that, right? What's going on there? Until they show you that they can no longer be trusted, right? You give them as much trust as they prove they deserve to have, all right, for a teenager. So that's what they talk about. Begin with earning and proving trust. Cool? All right, number 2. For a teenager, treat privacy as a privilege. All right? I remember watching these shows, right? And I used to hear them say, it's my room, where's my privacy? And I was like, oh man, in my house there's no privacy, right? My parents, the door was open and, you shared everything with your siblings and whatever. There was like no privacy whatsoever, right? But when they talked about privacy in this book, they said, you need to treat it, with your teenager, treat privacy as a privilege. It is not your right, all right? In my house, it is your privilege. So they said, the need for every teen to individuate themselves. It's normal for a teen to try to separate themselves from their parents so that they can be their own individual, right? But for parents, it is your responsibility to train them while they are teens for when they transition into adulthood. When kids enter into their teens, they are becoming adults and they should be granted as much privacy as they can handle. So if your child is on a gadget or they are on a particular page and you find that they are abusing that, or you find that they're even engaging on online conversations that are inappropriate, exercise your right as the parent to lay down the law and say, you can't be going there anymore. Because privacy is a privilege, it's not your right. So as long as you're with me in this house, this is how far your privacy will go. Now the problem becomes when the child has been doing the right thing, and then you go in and you still try to keep invading their privacy. You know what I mean? They feel like, well, I've been doing all the right things. Maybe, it's almost like it begins to hurt that relationship with your child. So be very careful when you're exercising your right as the parent to enter into those relationships. Because if you see, and you guys know, and I talk to my students a lot about this, but you don't know who you're chatting to when you're talking to people online. There can be people who are pretending to be an age that they're actually not. So you've got to be able to educate your child as much as possible. So if they're communicating with strangers, if they're getting online at the same time or at strange times, if they're being secretive about their use, if you're noticing that your teenager is experiencing mood changes a lot because they've been on these gadgets, you need to intervene. You need to intervene and step in and sort out what's going on and not feel like, I can't step in because it's their privacy. No, you need to. As the adult, you need to step in and ensure that you are nurturing a teenager who knows how to handle media responsibly. Yeah? All right, so those are the 2 things that Cloud and Townsend cover when it comes to boundaries with teenagers. Let's go to the last one. Yeah? So this is the one that probably everyone's probably been hanging to hear. All right? In the book, they talk about the most valuable asset that we have as people is our relationships and our connections between human to human, face-to-face contact. And when technology came into play, this relationship was threatened. And so we need to implement some things so that this relationship is not under attack, or that we're protecting it enough. So they give us 6 ways. How many? 6. All right, so you need to number down 1 to 6 on your book or on your page. And here we go. All right. Here's number 1. When technology came out, right, I remember my aunties and even my dad saying, those things are bad. Just get rid of all of it. I don't want any of it in my house. Get rid of all of it. All right, I don't want it anywhere near. When you get your own house and you buy your own things, then you sort it out then. But while you're under this roof, nothing. Right? And I remember thinking to myself, okay, right? But the problem with this mentality of saying get rid of all technology, don't let your child or don't let yourself be able to use it, is that when you do get access to it, you just go crazy. You're like, oh man, I never knew I could do that before. And, oh man, And then what happens is, especially for teenagers, is as soon as they get a hold of it, right, it's like they just become really irresponsible because they haven't been trained to know how to use it responsibly. So getting rid of it completely is probably not the best way to go about handling the media that's going to be available to our families. All right. This is the place in which you need to prepare yourself and also teenage and young children. This is the place where you need to teach them. All right. So I know a friend who has a little one. When she goes on the screen, she says, you have X amount of time, and after that, you don't get it for the rest of the day. All right? So it's about training them, and as they can prove that they can be trusted, you give them a little bit more as they grow. All right? But don't do the zero policy. Doesn't work. All right? Sometimes the zero policy actually makes it worse. So that's number one. Number two, keep the good in and the bad out. Can technology be good? Yes. Is the problem technology? What's the problem? Me. Yeah. So there isn't anything wrong with technology, all right? It's like when they used to say, money's the root of all evil. There's nothing wrong with money, but it's the motive and the intention that we have when we use these things in an irresponsible way, all right? And so when they say keep the good in and the bad out, if you find that there is misery in your relationship and your spouse reveals to you that you've been on your digital device for too long, that's the misery. Find the misery and make a rule around the misery. That's what that's saying. Don't say get rid of the technology altogether. Keep it. It's still good and it still has its uses, but find the point in which is creating pain in your relationships and create a rule around that. All right? So the rule may look like this. So if we just go to the next one. They may look like this. Turn phones off routinely and put away during important relationship time. All right? So if that's at the dinner table while you guys are eating and that's an important relationship time, put all digital media away. All right? Explain that to your children. When we are at the table, we are connecting with each other, we are hearing about each other's days. You need to put your tablet, your phone, whatever, including mommy and daddy, you put it away so we can have our conversations. All right? It may look like this. Email and social media are to be turned off during important work periods or other times that require sustained focus. I don't know if anyone else does this, but they might be working on something, right? And then got to check the phone, and then 10-minute break. Put it down, go back to work. Oh, but I really got to get the sermon done. 10 minutes, 20 minutes on the phone. Anyone else done that? Yeah? A particular task that should really only take you about half an hour somehow takes you 2 hours to complete, because in between all of that, you just can't stay focused on the one thing. Yeah, so they say when you're doing those kind of tasks, switch it all off. Those things that you know that would keep you from completing the task, right? Turn it on flight mode. Turn it off if you need to. Don't keep it within sight. Because the thing with me, right? I'll be typing away. I haven't heard my phone go off in a while. And I look around and go, oh, no one's texted me in a while. Send a text off to someone, put it down. Oh, they've replied. I have to reply. Right? That's my kind of thing. All right? So whatever it might be, if you've got a specific task you need to do, remove the media that might be distracting you from completing that task. Here's another practical way. You may social media engagement. Now this might be difficult for some of us, but I don't have social media. No, I do. I'm on YouTube. I'm subscribed to too many people. But social media engagement may need to be limited to certain time blocks. All right. So for example, 15 minutes, not at a time, 15 minutes, or limit yourself to a certain amount of time on social media. and then commit to saying that's the rule. All right? You might do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here. All right? But if you're going to set the rule, find the misery, create the rule. All right? Here's the last practical strategy that they give. And this one has been ringing in my head every single day this week. Because I don't know about you, right? But when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you grab? Yeah, your phone, right? And I tell myself, because I just need it. Because I need to just wake myself up. Right? Right? So, number 4 is no technology is used 30 minutes before going to bed at night and 30 minutes after getting up in the morning. Right? That might be a practical strategy for you, right? But I know this every morning this week, as I read that strategy, I woke up, I grabbed my phone, and I went, oh, no, that's a stink rule. That's a stink rule. Right? And then my husband goes, are you ready yet? And I'm like, oh, no. And I'm like trying to rush because I've been on my phone in the morning. As soon as I come out, it just sort of like delays me, and I take ages and ages to get ready because I've set the time aside to go on my phone, right? And I always do that. But yeah, find the point of misery that technology is creating for you and create a rule around it. All right, so that's number 2. Keep the good in and the bad out. All right, here's number 3. Intimacy is not a luxury; it's a necessity. All right, so I'm not talking about you and the phone. I'm talking about you and other people. All right, so I'm talking about intimacy between you and another human. All right, it's not a luxury. You and I need that in order to survive and thrive. All right, so what digital media has often done has now done is it's threatened our ability to connect face to face. All right, so we need to be in relationship with one another because that's what fuels us and fills us. It helps to provide us with acceptance, encouragement, empathy, wisdom, and other relational nutrients. They help us to grow, and God designed us to be in close and intimate relationships with himself and others. Now you think about that. When God created Adam, what did he say was not good? He said everything else was good except for one thing he made with Adam. Yeah, he says it is not good for man to be alone. And when I read that, it tells me that relationships is important to God, right? So doing the virtual online stuff it's good, it can help, but it cannot replace face-to-face relationships, all right? It's not a luxury. It's not something that oh yeah, I like chocolate. No, it's a necessity. It's something that you and I need so that we can grow, all right? So to protect, put some boundaries in place, right? When you're finding yourself spending more time on your gadget, get off it because you actually need to be more time with the people that you are around. All right. So number 4, another thing that they talk about protecting our most valuable asset of relationships is recognizing that to create intimacy, you need to actually be face-to-face contact with someone, because when you're texting, you can't really, when you read an email, you can't read the tone. Yeah, you can't read the body language in which it's been written. They might be going, it's fine, but they might actually be typing as, it's fine. Yeah, you can't read that in an email. You know what I mean? I'm okay, right? Unless they're writing in capital letters and you go, it feels like you're screaming at me. Yeah? Yeah, you can't read that in a text, all right? And so to create intimacy, you need to be face-to-face contact with someone. You're doing life with them and seeing them, because their cues inform you about what's going on, their body language, the tone in which they are saying things. So this relationship between you and the other person, intimacy is developed because there's multiple ways in which you are reading their communication. They're speaking, but they're also like, they could be saying, I'm fine, but they're crying. That tells you they're not fine. You can't read that on a text or an email. Does that make sense? So to create intimacy in a relationship, you need to be able ultimately, digital media cannot replace your face-to-face relationships. It's not going to do the same as when you're talking to somebody. All right, so remember how I said FOMO? I was going to come back and touch on this one? Yeah, okay, so here's what they say. Number 5, you need to address your FOMO issues. Oh, I can't just be talking to me. Yeah. And some of us go, yeah, but I don't have I don't really care if I don't get invited to blah, 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 blah. Or I don't really care if they don't really want me to be there, blah, blah. I'm still going to come. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Yeah. They say for most people who are addicted to their gadgets, there is some fear of missing out, right? For example, before technology came into place, all right, we didn't actually know what we were missing out on. You know what I mean? Like, social media now, you go, oh, I'm having a party or whatever, or Snapchat, you can take a photo that you're somewhere, and someone goes, oh, and they didn't invite me, right? But before technology, you didn't even know. So how could you miss out on something you didn't know about? You know what I mean? So what technology's done now, it's created this fear for some people where they recognize that they're missing out on something. But before that, we didn't even care because we didn't know. The second thing it says that the fear of missing out has done with technology, it says even if we know that something is going on, right, there is now an ability for us to do something about it, right? So before, if I lived here and there was an event happening over in America, it was harder because you had to go to the travel agency, you had to book through them to pay. They then dealt with all of it. But now you can just jump online. I have a ticket. I'm off to America. You know what I mean? So now there's something that I can do about it so that I don't miss out. Or if you can't afford, like me, to go to America, you can just go, can you just Facebook Live so I can watch it? Yeah? And you got that aunties go, can you see? Can you see? Yeah, see what's happening here? Yeah. So now you can still be present and it still feeds the fear of missing out. You can be present because that's what technology does. Right? So here's what they say. Because of the fear of missing out, that fear, they said technology has now created a dependency issue amongst people. Right? Because you depend on it so that you don't miss out on all of these things that are taking place in all these different events. So they say, here's a couple of things that you can try to do to try and address your FOMO issues. Number 1, engage with people you are with, all right? So when you are here, this happens to my husband and I all the time. We can be out for dinner, right? And he'll get a message or I'll get a message and we're halfway through a conversation, the message will go off and our conversation is just cut because then one of us are just responding. The other one's going, I haven't even finished my story yet. You know, you just left hanging and then they'll put the phone down. Oh, what were you saying? Yeah? Does anyone, yeah? That gets really annoying. Yeah, and I often say to my husband, can you put that down? Or he'll say to me, can you put that away? Like we're trying to have this time. Here's the reality. Be here to be here. But don't be here to be there. Does that make sense? Yeah? So engage with the people that you're here. Because here's what they ultimately say. Sometimes you have to miss out on something, right, to be here for the best things. But don't sacrifice the best things for those other things that won't actually fill you. You know what I mean? So sometimes you may have to miss out. You may have to miss out on not going to that event or knowing about that event because you don't want to miss out on the best things. You know? So here's the next one. They said, focus on creating a life of freedom. What technology can often do, it becomes the thing that controls us instead of us having control over it, over technology. So, if you're afraid of missing out on something, what that ultimately does is if you're responding and you're trying to connect because of that, then they are ultimately controlling your decision. You're not actually living the freedom to decide, you know what, I actually don't really care, or I actually don't want to be there, so I'm not going to go. So, live in the freedom, focus on creating a life of freedom that you get to decide what you do, not allowing a fear decide what you do. Observe regular non-digital time periods. So try and have as many face-to-face contact interactions as possible and fast digital media to help with severing your dependency ties. Someone needs to make sure my husband's hearing this. Yeah. Number 4, think through the why of your FOMO. All right. So follow the train of thought underlying your anxiety until you arrive at a reasonable reality. In class, we call this the 5 whys, right? So we say to some of our students, why do you feel like that? And they say, because. We say, well, because is not a reason. Give us a reason as to why you feel that way. And then I say, oh, because it made me feel sad. Well, why do you feel sad? Well, because da-da-da. Well, why do you feel that? Da-da-da. Until you have to keep asking the why till you get to the root reason as to why you are afraid to miss out. So follow the train of thought behind your FOMO. Yeah? And here's the last one. Train people in your life not to expect an instant response. Right? Sometimes when we get the text message or the call, we go, but I have to call them back, or I have to text them back. They just need me to answer. Right? But the question might have just been, how was your day? You don't have to answer straight away. Train people to understand that you will respond when you can respond. All right? But you don't have to respond straight away. All right? Tracking okay? Yeah. All right, we're at number 6. Here's the last one. Yeah? Number 6. Live a full and meaningful life. Whether you like it or not, the digital age is here to stay. But it's important that you make it work for you and not allow it to disrupt your life. This will take some work and reasonable rules, but the greatest boundary one can create to stay healthy in the digital age is to have a full life. Invest your time and energy in the relationships and activities that are meaningful, enjoyable, and engaging. Have deep and vulnerable conversations with loving people. Discover and express your passions and develop ways to give back and serve others. If the digital age is causing you need to not miss out on this one. If the digital age is causing you to not live life to its fullest because you're too much of this and you're not out there, then you're allowing it to control you. And unfortunately, you may allow a gadget that is meant to connect you, keep you disconnected from life altogether. I hope you didn't miss that. Because the thing is the same about technology. The thing that was meant to connect us can often still keep us disconnected, right? But I want to touch back on what Frank said last week. He said, our kids are not going to get up and say, man, I wish mom and dad worked harder. Or I wish that they could bring more money into us. If anything happened to us and our kids, and if anything happened and you were on and you had passed away, I bet you any money our children would say, I wish I had more time with mommy and daddy. And when I think about this, I don't think any kid's going to get up and say, I wish mommy and daddy bought me a smartphone. Or I wish mommy and daddy could have invested more time into their gadgets and learn how to use technology better. I don't think they're going to say that. I think they're going to still say the same thing. I wish my family could spend more time with me. I wish that that's what they did. And so when I think about this, the boundaries are simple. Don't let digital media be what controls you. Exercise the law of power and say to yourself, I will dictate how digital media will be used in my life. And then model it to your kids. I have 2 questions that I just want to put up on the board for you to have with the people next to you, and then we'll pray and finish up. Number 1, what stood out to you from today's topic? 2, what's your take-home message from today's talk about boundaries and the digital age? All right? God bless family. We've had together. We thank you, Lord, for the things that you have revealed to us as we've been sharing, and just thank you for Cloud and Townsend and just the knowledge that they have, that you've gifted them with, and the way that they've been able to share that with us. Lord, we just pray that as we have learned things around how to create boundaries or working out the kind of boundaries we need to put when it comes to technology and the digital age, Lord, I pray that you will guide us. Lord, you say in your word that, that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. And so I pray that you help us to navigate our way around what is beneficial when it comes to digital media. Help us, Lord God, to model that well to our children as well, so that as they grow up in this day and age, that they will know how to use technology in a way that is responsible and one that will also be pleasing to you. And so we thank you, Father, for your love. We thank you for our family here. Bless us as we depart from here. May you keep us safe. Until we meet again next week, we ask and pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.